Hi, it's Selena, and we are back in the kitchen again. Hopefully, getting your kids in the kitchen and learning along with you and having fun being intuitive cooks and using ingredient substitutions so we don't have to go to the store all the time during this quarantine living that we're all doing. It's a way to kind of use what you have and have fun with what you have and make recipes work. So today we are going to make kitchen sink cookies. That means whatever's in the kitchen, we're going to use. We're going to mix it all up and we're going to make delicious cookies. I want to give you an idea of how you can make substitutions with this recipe. The recipe will be pasted below, and you can go to hamptonshomecooking.com for more information or to ask me a question. It's Selena at hamptonshomecooking.com. Today we're making kitchen sink cookies, which means we're going to use ingredient substitutions because a lot of people can't get to the store so easily now. A lot of items aren't in the stores very readily at this point. So I am making these cookies without butter and without eggs. You might say, how can you make a cookie like that? What is it going to come out like? Well, I want to show you what the end result looks like, and then I'm going to go over with you the different ways you can add substitutions, and you can use what you have in the kitchen and make it fun and easy. One of the things we are going to do is we're going to utilize Easter candy, or can I say Christmas candy? I don't know. Whatever candy you have in the house, you can also use to flavor and make your cookies fun. What I did was I went ahead and prepared a batch using chocolate chips, coconut, no eggs, no butter. Now, we are going to grease the pan. So if you do have butter, great. Use a tiny bit to grease the pan. And one of the tricks that my mother taught me was you can actually use the wrapper, the butter wrapper, to go ahead and grease your cookie pan. Or you can use a little bit of Crisco on a paper towel, or you can use a little bit of oil, or if you have cooking spray. So if you don't have butter, it's fine. What I want you to do is heat your oven to 350 right now and get your cookie tray out, clean it so it doesn't have any dust on it, and lightly grease your pan. We're going to go through the recipe ingredients, and I'm going to show you the finished result like I promised. So I have it right over here. Your kitchen sink cookie is going to come out filled with delicious ingredients, and you can see chocolate chips in here. You can see when I break this open, there's pieces of coconut because I used coconut in this. They're very moist cookies and they're really delicious. My son ate about 5. So that was a snack after breakfast. You can imagine how good these are. They come out to be very cake-like, very moist, but you can certainly go ahead and add a little bit more brown sugar. And I am going to show you the recipe with butter as well. So they're very forgiving cookies, and they almost have kind of like a fruitcake quality because with these cookies, I actually made my very own homemade applesauce to make these. And I'm going to talk to you about how you can do that, but they're super good. I'll show you again what they look like when they come out of the oven. And nice and golden brown. So if you're a cookie lover and you want to wow people, this is really easy with what you have at home. And you don't have to stress out about anything. Now, let's go over the basic ingredients you're going to need. Again, put your oven on 350. We're going to substitute the butter with applesauce. Now, I have the standard jar applesauce, but you're going to see in the pictures below this recipe, you're going to see how I actually made applesauce out of, get this, I didn't even have enough apples, some leftover pear and apples, and I left some of the skin on and chopped it up, and it was about a little over a cup, and then I cooked it down with about a teaspoon of water, mashed it up, and that's how I made these no butter homemade applesauce. And you can even see a little bit of the apple peel in there. And that is going to go ahead and make it a little bit of a thickening agent, which works great. So if you're going to use store-bought applesauce, here it is. So we're going to put a cup in a bowl. And I'm definitely going to get to some fun parts in this recipe. And then we're going to use a half a cup of brown sugar. Now, if you don't have brown sugar, you can go ahead and use molasses and sugar. So like a tablespoon of molasses and then mix it up with a cup of sugar. But you can also just use regular sugar, and you can substitute with honey as well. So this recipe is a half a cup of brown sugar, and then we're also going to put another half a cup of regular white table sugar. So if you don't have enough white sugar, you can just use a cup of brown sugar. So a half a cup, this is a quarter cup measurement. I'm going to put 2 of these in this bowl. Now we'll mix the wet ingredients first, or the moist ingredients, I should say, and then we'll mix the dry ingredients and put them together. I like doing that because we have vanilla in this recipe, and it makes it a little bit easier for the vanilla to get distributed. So that's what we're doing. So we're going to put the brown sugar and also your applesauce. And now I'm going to put a good teaspoon of vanilla in here. If you really like vanilla, you can put an extra dash. It actually makes it taste really a little bit more homey, I think. So you can definitely put a little bit more of that. Now, another secret ingredient I want to share with you is cream cheese. There are some old-fashioned, from a long time ago, some vegan recipes that use substitutes. And if you're not really strict vegan, they used tofu made cream cheese. So I thought, let me try regular cream cheese. And I used a heaping tablespoon of cream cheese in this recipe. I really like the way that it all comes together. So I kept it. And so that's a tablespoon of cream cheese in there. And then the next ingredient that we're going to use is the regular sugar. So I want to get a half a cup of white sugar. I have it right here. You can add a little dash if you like it sweeter. Just add, another teaspoon, or subtract another teaspoon if you want it a little bit less sweet. Like I said, you can also substitute honey, and you can do a half a cup of honey to a cup of sugar if you don't have the brown sugar. And then just go ahead and mix this all together. Now, it's going to be a rough mix. We don't need to use a blender. We're not blending eggs in this, so it's fine. Now, in the recipe that's posted on the Montauk Library website, I'm going to add the butter substitution. So if you can't get to Montauk Library's blog by Lana Thieling, you can also just listen to this video and know that instead of all of the applesauce and the cream cheese in here, you're going to keep the sugar. You can do a cup of butter, and I still like to keep a little bit of the applesauce to keep it together and give it flavor. So I would do then about a half a cup of applesauce, and I would increase the flour in the recipe to a quarter cup extra flour. So right now I'm mixing the sugar, and the brown sugar, and the applesauce, and the vanilla, and the cream cheese. And it's looking pretty good. You'll see little bits of cream cheese in it, and that's okay. It's totally fine. Just mix it up as best you can. This is a great way to work with your kids because this recipe is one that you can actually taste the batter. And I didn't do it, but no, I did actually. You can just kind of eat little bits of it as you go along. It's really delicious, and there's no harm in it. Now, for this recipe, there's going to be a lot of add-ins because it's kitchen sink cooking. So it's whatever you have left over. Now, some of the add-ins that I'll go into in a little bit are going to be things you might be allergic to. Maybe your kids are allergic. Guess what? You can substitute it, and I'm going to show you how. So we're going to mix those wet ingredients together. And now we will mix the dry ingredients. So this is going to be very fun because we are using oats, okay? But one of the other things we're using is flour, and then we're using coconut. If you don't want to use the coconut, you can actually use crushed up cereal, which can be any kind of cereal. But today I want to show you, you can use cornflakes. That's really easy. Or you can use mini wheats, or you can use Cheerios. If you just crush them up. Everyone should have a wooden spoon of some sort in their kitchen, and it's easy just to kind of crush whatever you need to crush with a wooden spoon. It generally doesn't have things flying out like, a metal spoon would. It's pretty forgiving and easy to work with. So I have a couple of wooden spoons. So for the dry ingredients here, we're going to use 3/4 cups of flour. And we're going to use, this has a little lid in it. We're going to use a cup, and let me check my recipe. Did I do it? Yeah, I did 1.5 cups of oats. So you see, like some of this is spilling. It's okay. I have 1/4 cup here. So you know what you're going to do. If you want to use some crushed up cereal, you can take down those oats by 1/4 cup, which is exactly what I'm going to do. And then I'm just going to use 1/4 cup of cornflakes. So I'm going to crush them up with my hand a little bit. My video camera is moving. And I'm going to use 1/4 cup of these cornflakes. Now, this is a fun activity for kids. These are easy to crush with your clean hands that you've just washed. And you can just easily smush this up. Can you use Frosted Flakes? Yeah, you can. Can you use Raisin Bran? Absolutely. So there you go. Just a fine crush. And this will give your cookies a little crunch. There you go. Now, as you see, I'm being very forgiving with this, and you can have the kids just get this incorporated with their hands. It's totally fine, or you can use a spoon. I like to use my hands because then I can make sure all of the ingredients are incorporated nicely in the beginning. And then you're going to use some salt. I always use my hands, I know. You can use a teaspoon measurer, and it is 1 teaspoon of salt. That'll make a really tasty cookie. And then we're going to use 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder and baking soda, respectively. So there's your 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder and 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. There's that. There we go. Perfect. So here are your dry ingredients, and now I'll take my spoon and stir this together. Now this is the point where you can say to yourself, what else do I want to put in? Now in my kitchen cabinet, we had some extra cashews. We had some extra walnuts, some craisins, almonds. Then I have my coconut and raisins. So you're going to want to do 1/2 cup each of whatever you're using. But if you don't have enough, you can just use your own judgment. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm going to use these raisins. So this is about 1/4 cup. And then I'm going to also add in this 1/4 cup of craisins. That's why we call it kitchen sink, because you can put anything in here. And so if you don't want to use coconut, that's fine. You can just keep going with whatever you have. But I love the taste of coconut in kitchen sink cookies So I'm going to use a cup of coconut. Now you notice I put in the baking powder and baking soda as one of the first ingredients. And if you have a whisk, you can whisk that in, because there's nothing worse than getting baking powder and baking soda lumps in cookies. You know what I'm talking about. So there you go. I did a cup of coconut in here. And I'm just going to mix this all together. Now, when I first made these cookies, as you saw with my example, I used chocolate chips. So I have this nice little French container, and I have these huge chocolate chips. It doesn't matter what you have left over. You might have a tablespoon of white chocolate chips, a tablespoon of little tiny mini chips. You might have these big hunks of chocolate, or you might have leftover holiday candy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this Reese's and I'm going to add a little bit of peanut butter flavor. If you're allergic to peanuts, you can use whatever candy you have or like, or you can just use the chocolate chips that you like. I'm going to use a Kit Kat. I think I'll use 2 Kit Kats. And what I'm going to do is just get my trusty knife and roughly chop, and I'll show you what it looks like, these candies to add to the kitchen sink cookies. So for the Reese's, I just did tiny bits. I'm going to put these in here now. And for the Kit Kats, I'm just going to cut little tiny squares. Now, I'm sure the kids will love looking into what candy and ingredients you have left over at home to use. And then you can decide. Here's your little squares of Kit Kat, which will be nice and crunchy. So I'm going to add in some of these chips. And my family likes nuts, so I will add in some of these cashews. There we go. I just remembered something funny. You got to really think about everyone you're serving. Because I was thinking about giving these to a friend and I went, oh no, I put the nuts in too quickly. So always remember what your ingredients are. All right. So this is going to be added to our wet ingredients. I'm going to dump in the really good either molasses mixture or brown sugar and your applesauce and your cream cheese and get every last drop. And one of the fun things you can do with these cookies is decide on what kind of spices you like in them. So we like cinnamon, and I would actually add that in with my dry ingredients. I just remembered right now. But that's the cool thing about this recipe. It's very forgiving. So you can add in your cinnamon, your nutmeg, whatever it is that you really love. And then make sure, oh, it smells so good. And you know you can eat this batter. That's the fun part. There's nothing wrong with eating this batter because there's no eggs in it. So I'm going to get this all mixed up. Now, if you have trail mix at home, you can certainly go ahead and put in your trail mix. If you just want to make this mostly cereals, that would be fun. You can put in your, Raisin Bran, whatever the cereal is. And then you'll see how that looks like it's everything and the kitchen sink in there. That's why it's kitchen sink cookies. So I'm stirring this up. Now, I want to show you a trick. This is some batter I made earlier. When we go ahead and put these cookies on the tray, I want to tell you that it's kind of fun to get this batter a little cooled for maybe 10-15 minutes in your refrigerator. Because when you do that, and then you scoop out what you want to use for the cookies, you might be able to just roll them if they're cold enough. You can even kind of throw it in the freezer for a little bit in little balls and then put them on your greased cookie sheet. I'm just going to wipe my hands a minute because I want to grab the butter. Now, if you missed last week's trick, I'll show you again this week. So you can make these cookies with or without butter, as you'll see on the recipe. But if you have butter, I just put a little bit on a napkin and then go ahead and grease the pan. It's really the easiest way to do it because you won't get a lot of mess either, on the butter, or you won't get a lot of mess on your hands. Now, this is a fun activity the kids can do. Greasing the cookie sheet. Like I said, you can also use any kind of shortening or a little bit of oil to grease your cookie sheet. And then you take your little cookie balls. That was a little coconut. Put them on. Now you want a nice big tablespoon size. And this recipe will make a lot of that size cookie. If you are going to roll these with your hands, they will be sticky. And if they're not cold enough, it'll be a little difficult to do that. But you certainly can do it with the kids, especially if they grease their hands. You can do that. So I'm going to line these up about 1 inch apart, squishing them down just a bit as I put them on. And then they're going to bake in that 350-degree oven for about 10 minutes to 12 minutes. So keep your eye on them. It really all depends on the kind of baking pan you have, because some baking pans tend to, they might burn the cookies. So you just want to keep an eye on it and take a look and see what they look like after about 10 minutes, when it's like 9 minutes or so. Take a look, see what they're looking like, and then you can decide, do I want to take them out and take a quick look at the bottoms and make sure that they're not burning? Why not? You can. That's what you should do. But I would recommend about 12 minutes for the cookies to really cook and set. And I'm going to get these all on the pan. And you can always use your fingers to help yourself out when you're cooking. It's you in the kitchen, right? You're the chef. You make the rules. So here's the cookies. And so I'm going to go ahead and put them in the oven. And make a huge noise. Like I said, they come out so good. Look how perfectly they cook. No eggs. It's fantastic. It's like a miracle. No butter. And you can make them your own. That's the best part. So I'm going to enjoy this cookie, and then I'll post some pictures and you can see what they look like when they come out of the oven.